Hello, it's Dante Graves here. Gotta be honest with you guys. Sometimes I get really tired of having to put on my Hawaiian shirt, load a gun, go outside to some haunted house where there's a madman with an axe, cardboard box over his head with a swastika on it, and he's gonna run at me and try and kill me because his Nazism has spread to just any human being is now deserving of death, and he's gonna carry out his mass holocaust on the human race with only his own volition and an axe, and I'm the only guy. It's been a long week, okay? And thankfully that guy is dead, but when you have an encounter like that, sometimes you're just like, man, I'd rather just sit in my chair and talk about a movie for a second. So, this isn't the Dante Graves show proper, but, sometimes I actually manage to squeeze in enough time to watch a film. Look, I've already seen every movie ever, but this is going to come as a twist. I haven't seen
every movie
ever. So enough cardboard box wearing Nazis with axes in haunted houses. Enough of that shit for now, okay? For right now, I want to talk about Herschel Gordon Lewis. Herschel Gordon Lewis was an exploitation filmmaker in the, 60s. That was kind of like his prime era, but he was in other decades as well, so don't fucking at me with stats and data in the comments section. Herschel Gordon Lewis was mainly known for doing, really gory exploitation films, like the Gore-sploitation subgenre, but he also did lots of other things. He did nudie cuties, which were not like pornos, but they were imagine how do I put this? Like The Graduate, except everyone around the guy was naked for no reason. He was mainly just a guy that was making whatever would get money or played in drive-ins or grindhouse theaters. He was
oh, we're gonna do all the weird sex shit, because that's what people are paying to see.
Oh, they like to see people get their intestines ripped out of their bodies? I'll make a movie about that.
It was never he had a passion for gore films. It just, that's what he became known as, because horror as a genre tends to stick around a lot longer. I mean, I could name several silent era, 12-minute experimental horror films, but I can't name any of any other genre. I can name several exploitation filmmakers who dabbled in the horror genre. I can't name exploitation filmmakers that specialized exclusively in the private investigator porn subgenre, which is a thing. But Herschel Gordon Lewis, I had just never really looked into. I first heard of his exploits via the film Juno. Awesome movie. In that movie, they reference a movie called The Wizard of Gore, and as a kid, that sounded like the most badass movie ever. I was like, is this gonna be evil Dumbledore, or is it a wizard with the pointy hat and a wand and a long beard, and he's somehow involved in gore? I don't know. I don't know. I need to know. Then I finally tracked the movie down, and I watched it. He's not a wizard, he's a magician. I watched 5 of Herschel Gordon Lewis's films, because I had never seen any of them, and I almost thought about buying this sweet-ass box set that had 6 of his other things that were not gore films. They were his just early experimental shit, and I wanted to check him out. So, the films that we will be discussing today are Color Me Blood Red, 2000 Maniacs, Blood Feast, The Wizard of Gore, and The Gore Girls, otherwise known by its other title, Blood Orgy. From the Something Weird Blu-ray sets, these are really the best way to try and find weird shit like that, because you're never gonna get a single release of 2000 Maniacs on Blu-ray, but they'll sure put it on a trilogy called the Blood Trilogy. And it's the Blood Trilogy not in the same way that the Flesh Trilogy is a series of continuing films. It's all one narrative. It's more of the Cornetto Trilogy, or the fucking the Revenge Trilogy. Those what is his name? I cannot remember the name of the filmmaker, but they're stupendous movies. Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and Old Boy, and lots of incest and torture and rape and murder and revenge going on in those movies. Here's the thing about all of his movies. I could almost review them all with one broad stroke. I was really looking forward to him because he's known as this super prolific horror filmmaker, even though he did do other things, but the lack of passion and care behind pretty much all of these films is very evident. They were like being made to make a buck. Like they are the ultimate definition of cash grab. Some of them, more like the later ones, you can tell he's starting to kind of give a little bit of a shit. Like a little one. More or less, they're just like really bad movies. And I mean that not in a good way. Like they're just inundated with non-actors, with incredibly like clunky camera work is the best way I could say it. There's a difference between poor camera work in a film like Dirty Harry, where it's like a lot of the camera work really sucks, but then there's certain shots where it's like, oh, this guy actually gives a shit about his craft right now. But then other times it's like it's too dark, it's shaking around too much, it's framed in a way that's just unappealing to my eyes. But all shots in all Herschel Gordon Lewis movies are framed to be unappealing to your eyeballs. Even The Wizard of Gore, which is like his most kind of famous movie, I think mainly because of Juno. That movie, like, there's so many ways I was just sitting there and I'm like, why wouldn't you just put the camera over here? It would look so much nicer and prettier that way. But they don't care about that. They just care about showing you icky, ooey, ah things. And here's the thing also about the gore in all these films. The gore is not like in the same way that a Friday the 13th movie or a Saw movie, like you're seeing the gore actually take place. It's more so like they have an idea like, hey, we're gonna have him fucking stick his finger in her eyeball and pull the eyeball out, and then he's gonna fucking eat the eyeball. But you mainly just see him like start putting his finger near her eye, and then it's like a very abrupt, intrusive cut is made, and then he's holding the eyeball, and now he's like playing with it and holding it at the camera, and like you just, people are supposed to be like squirming in their seats at this point, and then he's gonna eat the eyeball, and it's gonna be obviously like a candy eyeball or something like that. And look, I get it, and I can find that stuff appealing, and I do find this stuff appealing, but it's like the effects are so bad and they're so poorly shot even, and they're in such poorly acted movies that have such terrible plots to begin with. Like, the plots are ridiculous. Let me read you the plots of some of these fucking movies, since I'm basically just reviewing them all at the exact same time. Blood Feast. When an Egyptian cultist is hired to cater a birthday party, he prepares a culinary catastrophe made from the body parts of sexy young women. 2000 Maniacs. The citizens of a small southern town celebrate the anniversary of the Civil War by forcing a handful of northerners to participate in a variety of blood-crazed fun and games. Geopolitical warfare exploitation? Is that even a subgenre? Color Me Blood Red. This one actually sounded the most intriguing, and then you watch the movie and it's done in the most ho-hum, I don't give a fuck way that it sucked the enjoyment out of it. Like, he's clearly trying to kind of put a little bit of medicine in the sugar, and it's just not working because everything about the film is so pedestrian. A maniacal artist discovers the joys of painting in human blood, which he must crudely extract from the local ladies. Hell yeah. The Wizard of Gore. Lunatic magician Montag the Magnificent tears apart pretty young women as part of his stage act. Except, it's not a trick. It's real. Crazy carnage and offbeat surrealism in one of H.G. Lewis's most bizarre films. Also, the film that he is the most dissatisfied with, which I find intriguing because it's his most watchable, other than the one we're about to bring up, which is
The Gore Girls, otherwise known as Blood Orgy.
A lunatic with a grudge against strippers and G-strings enthusiastically mutilates go-go girls with eyeball-popping, face-ironing, head-smashing, and buttock bashing, aka Blood Orgy. This is perhaps Lewis's most notorious cinematic gross-out. Honestly, if we're all the cards on the table here, don't fucking watch any of these movies. The best way to watch them, and there is a way to watch these movies, is, and I mean these three. We'll get to these in a second. I'm just discussing the Blood trilogy for a second. All three of these movies were almost unwatchable in the current state that I was watching them in. I was watching them on a nice TV, in a comfy chair, with a drink and some popcorn, and I was by myself. I was miserable. These movies are so rough to watch. And I'm not saying like I was cringing at the gore. I'm just like, I was bored. I was seriously bored. Because, yeah, it's very easy for me to sit there and point out the shortcomings of a film that was very clearly made just to get it out there and put it in seats and get people in seats. But, like, that wouldn't be doing any good, okay? How these movies were meant to be watched then, they can't do that anymore, because I've just seen grosser. I've seen more vicious. I've seen more appalling. I've seen more bad. I've seen, like, more poorly made films that are more entertaining. Like, The Room is a notorious bad movie. That movie Veronica that one fucking guy did recently was terrible. I hated it. But there is a way to watch those films, and I'll tell you how to do it. You get your friends together, you drink a little bit. You don't have to get fucking hammered, but just drink a little bit. And really, you don't even have to drink. You can just have your friends together. And as long as you have friends who are even remotely interesting and give a little bit of a shit about movies in general, you can have a fucking blast watching anything, really, anything. These movies would tear the fucking house down if you had a group of friends together watching them. I watched them by myself and found them incredibly boring. And that's not to say that I find slow-paced shit boring. I liked that movie, The Old Dark House. Nothing happens in that movie until like the last 10 minutes. I like things that have atmosphere. And like atmosphere can keep me entertained. And I can be so incredibly patient. You can string me along forever. As long as you have something there for me to enjoy, like, just on my own. For me to, like, observe and kind of, like, think about. And these movies don't have that. They're made to be watched and pointed at and laughed and talked over with a group of people. And even in their initial setting, drive-through theaters, that's what they were supposed to do. And the fact is, the gore is laughable now. And the gore, like, while there's lots of crazy, super inventive and creative things being, like, displayed and being shown and exhibited in these films, the fact of the matter is that the gore effects are so bad that you can't sell me on those anymore. Like, the gore effects are supposed to be laughed at now. And that's fine. I love that movie, Blood-Sucking Freaks. The movie kicks ass. It is awesome. But you know what? I watched it with a couple friends of mine. And that's why it was awesome. I was sitting there thinking, like, man, if I was watching this by myself, I would have turned it off a long time ago. Because it's just boring. It's just so boring. I'm sorry. These three movies are really all pretty bad. I'd say the best one out of these would probably be Blood Feast. There's a lot of wacky, nutso shit going on. And I'm capable of laughing at a movie, but, like, when you sat through 5 of these in a row for 2 days, I didn't like, do it consecutively, but I sat over the course of 2 days. I'd be like, okay, time to watch a movie. I'm going to watch this next Herschel Gordon Lewis movie. And this was the experience that I gathered. If I was to recommend any Herschel Gordon Lewis, anybody who doesn't know anything about Herschel Gordon Lewis, who wants to get into it, one, watch some of his other stuff. Like, I have not seen it, but, like, this isn't the only thing he did. He did other things. But two, if you want to see the Gore stuff, fuck the Blood trilogy, buy this, okay? Wizard of Gore, I was able to watch from beginning to end without being too overly bored. I was still, like, I was enjoying it, like, just chuckling to myself enough that it didn't fucking, like, it wasn't torture for me to sit through it. And once it was over, I'm like, well, I'd never watch that by myself again. But I would highly consider watching this with friends of mine. So that's, like, the best criticism I can give. That's the best recommendation I can give about any of these things. The Gore Girls, or Blood Orgies is called, that movie's awesome, okay? That was his last movie that he had made, and then he was like gone for like 30, 40 years. He did like weird shit after that. He like wrote books. Books? Are you serious? And then he came back and he like had like this little Twilight era, like all these horror film directors do. They're like, oh, new film, and then the movie is just like really bad. I'm sorry, guys. Time is undefeated. It beats everybody. But the Blood Orgy, or the Gore Girls, that's such a stupid title. Blood Orgy is it just rolls off the tongue. It's just downright slick. That movie kicks ass. It's got this super unlikable, effeminate private investigator who just could not give a shit about anybody dying, and he's investigating this wild fucking case, and it's just, like, you're rooting for him to solve the case, but at the same time, you have such like disdain for him because of how little he gives a shit about everybody around him, and he's just a memorable protagonist, and the kills are like memorable. I don't know what to say. Like, it's everything he had learned throughout doing all of these, this was his big blowout, and I think it's the most watchable out of all his films. If you were to buy both of these, watch them back to back with a group of friends, you had a bunch of snacks and stuff to drink, and you were in a nice, cozy environment, I think both of these films, this Blu-ray set right here, that's what you want to buy, okay? These films leave a lot to be desired when you watch them on your own and just expect them to entertain you, which the purpose of watching a movie is it's supposed to entertain you, okay? And so when I'm having to, like, do crazy, like, mental gymnastics to try and find things in the movie to entertain myself with, just because I'm curious enough that I want to learn about these films, I can't recommend those in good conscience to people who just want a movie to entertain them. I can, however, 100% recommend these films to somebody who wants to watch bad garbage with friends of theirs. That garbage that has a soul, I should say. It's not, when I say that there's like lack of care put into them, I just mean that they're really sloppily thrown together, and that stuff can be fine. I think Herschel Gordon Lewis is a lot like Ed Wood in that everyone knows him as being this kind of like horror genre filmmaker, when really he just did whatever, you know, and he definitely had a passion for film, but never really had a passion for an individual movie, or individual idea, I should say. And they both ended up doing just a bunch of, like, borderline porn. Those are my opinions on the Herschel Gordon Lewis films. If you'd like to see me talk about more movies, let me know. I've got my priorities. I gotta go fight monsters and ghosts and stuff like that. But I'm capable of sitting down every now and again, putting my feet in the ground, and talking about some movies. So, thank you for watching this video. Tune in to the Dante Graves Show. It comes out whenever I find something, I guess. Here's the playlist for that. Here's how you subscribe to my channel. If you want me to talk about a particular film, it is the spooky season. Leave me something in the comments below, and I'll try my best. I promise only to try.